The intricate tapestry of human history is woven with threads of innovation, resilience, and creativity. However, history is intertwined with both negative events, which leaves a trail of hurting and great pain. Such is the chapter of human history, where the deliberate use of drugs were used to dismantle and devastate Native American societies. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Native Journal. In today's episode, we embark on a journey back in time, where we unravel how drugs were used to destroy Native Americans. Before we delve deeper into the video, please support us by helping this channel grow. You help us grow when you like our videos and subscribe to the channel. You also benefit when you subscribe to the channel because you get notified whenever we post exciting videos like this one. So, encourage us by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. European colonization brought with it a plethora of new substances previously unknown to the indigenous populations of the Americas. Among these, alcohol stands out as one of the earliest and most impactful introductions. European traders, in their pursuit of furs and trade alliances, strategically exchanged alcohol with indigenous communities. Initially regarded as a social lubricant and a medium of exchange, alcohol soon became a weapon of colonization. Its widespread availability and consumption led to detrimental consequences within Native society. The impact of alcohol on indigenous communities is multifaceted. It disrupted traditional practices and social structures, leading to internal conflicts and the disintegration of communal bonds. The consequences of alcohol abuse manifest in a variety of ways, including increased violence, familial discord, and health issues. Additionally, the dependency on alcohol resulted in economic exploitation, as many indigenous individuals became indebted to traders due to their addiction. Opium, another substance introduced by colonizers, also played a significant role in the exploitation and destruction of Native American communities. Though primarily utilized for meditational purposes in the 19th century, some historical accounts suggest that opium was deliberately provided to indigenous populations to foster addiction and dependence. This deliberate tactic aimed to weaken resistance to colonial rule, further destabilizing Native societies and cultures. Government policies implemented during the boarding school era further exacerbated the use of substances as a means of control. Native American children were forcibly separated from their families and cultures and placed into institutions where substances like alcohol and later methamphetamine were sometimes used as tools to suppress cultural identities and impose assimilation into Euro-American norms. The devastating consequences of these historical actions are still palpable in Native American communities today. Substance abuse, mental health challenges, socioeconomic disparities, and cultural erosion persist as enduring legacies of this dark chapter in history. Efforts to address these issues are hindered by systemic barriers, including limited access to quality health care, economic opportunities, and culturally appropriate support services. Understanding this historical context is crucial to acknowledging the atrocities committed against indigenous populations and their ongoing repercussions. It prompts us to engage in meaningful reconciliation efforts, promote awareness, and advocate for justice and empowerment for Native American communities. Recognizing this history is essential to fostering a more equitable and inclusive future for all. 1. Alcohol, a weapon of colonization. The arrival of European colonizers in the Americas marked a turning point in the history of indigenous peoples, not only in terms of territorial displacement and cultural upheaval, but also in the introduction of substances that had a profound and detrimental impact on their communities. Among these destructive agents, alcohol emerged as a potent weapon of colonization, used to exploit, manipulate, and ultimately destroy Native American society. Alcohol's introduction to Native American communities was largely unintentional, a consequence of the fur trade and other forms of economic exchange between indigenous peoples and Europeans. However, colonizers quickly recognized the potential of alcohol as a tool for control and exploitation. They deliberately provided Native Americans with alcohol, often in exchange for valuable furs and other resources, taking advantage of their initial lack of familiarity with the substance's intoxicating effects. The impact of alcohol on Native American communities was devastating. Alcohol consumption led to widespread addiction, impairing individuals' physical and mental health, disrupting social structures, and fueling violence and conflict. It eroded traditional values and practices, weakening communities' ability to resist colonial domination. The effects of alcohol were particularly severe among Native American women, who were often the primary victims of alcohol-related violence and abuse. Alcohol consumption also contributed to high rates of fetal alcohol syndrome among Native American children, perpetuating a cycle of dependency and ill health. European colonizers exploited Native Americans' vulnerability to alcohol to further their colonial agendas. They used alcohol to weaken indigenous resistance, suppress cultural practices, and facilitate land seizure. Alcohol was also a tool of assimilation, as colonizers encouraged Native Americans to adopt European drinking habits, eroding their cultural identity and fostering dependence on European goods and traditions. The devastating impact of alcohol on Native American communities has persisted for centuries, leaving a legacy of addiction, poverty, and social dysfunction. Today, Native Americans continue to face disproportionately high rates of alcohol-related problems, a stark reminder of the lasting effects of this colonial weapon. The history of alcohol's use as a weapon of colonization serves as a painful reminder of the destructive consequences of unchecked power and exploitation. It highlights the need for continued efforts to address the legacy of colonialism and its ongoing impact on Native American communities. Acknowledging and addressing the harmful effects of alcohol on Native American communities is a crucial step toward healing and reconciliation. It demands a recognition of the historical trauma inflicted upon indigenous peoples and a commitment to dismantling the structures and systems that perpetuate these harms. Moving forward, it is imperative to support community-based initiatives that empower Native Americans to reclaim their cultural identity, foster resilience, and address alcohol-related challenges in culturally sensitive and effective ways. By acknowledging the destructive legacy of alcohol as a weapon of colonization and working collaboratively toward healing and empowerment, we can begin to pave the way for a more just and equitable future for Native American communities. 2. Opium and forced addiction. The history of Native Americans is marked by resilience and perseverance in the face of countless hardships. However, one of the most devastating and often overlooked aspects of their story is the systematic use of opium and other addictive substances to undermine their cultures and communities. The introduction of opium to Native American populations began in the early 19th century, primarily through trade with European fur traders and settlers. Initially, opium was used as a medicinal remedy for pain and ailments. However, its addictive nature quickly became apparent, and it soon found its way into the hands of those who sought to exploit and control Native Americans. The British fur traders, in particular, recognized the potential of opium as a tool of control. They began to deliberately supply Native American communities with the drug, often in exchange for valuable furs and land. As opium addiction took hold, it weakened tribal structures, disrupted traditional practices, and left individuals and communities vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation. The use of opium among Native Americans was not merely a matter of individual addiction. It was a strategic weapon employed to suppress their resistance and facilitate their assimilation into Euro-American society. The drug-induced dependency created a sense of apathy and despair, making Native Americans less likely to challenge the European settlers and the imposition of colonial rule. The devastating effects of opium addiction were widespread among Native American communities. Families were torn apart, traditional economies were disrupted, and individuals suffered from a range of physical and mental health problems. The drug also played a role in the spread of diseases, further exacerbating the health disparities between Native Americans and their European counterparts. Despite the devastating impact of opium addiction, Native Americans demonstrated remarkable resilience in their struggle against this destructive force. Traditional healers and community leaders recognized the harm caused by the drug and sought to counteract its effects through various means, including spiritual ceremonies, herbal remedies, and community support systems. The efforts of Native Americans to combat opium addiction were met with resistance from those who sought to maintain their control over the drug trade. Powerful individuals and organizations, including the Hudson's Bay Company, profited from the supply of opium to Native American communities and actively discouraged efforts to curb its use. As the 19th century progressed, the use of opium among Native Americans gradually declined, but the scars of addiction remained. The legacy of this dark chapter in history serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences of colonialism and the ongoing struggle for Native American sovereignty. Today, the issue of substance abuse among Native American communities continues to be a pressing concern. The legacy of opium addiction, coupled with other factors such as poverty, trauma, and limited access to health care, has contributed to high rates of addiction to alcohol, prescription drugs, and other substances. Addressing the issue of substance abuse among Native Americans requires a holistic approach that recognizes the historical, cultural, and social factors that contribute to addiction. It is crucial to provide culturally sensitive treatment programs, promote community-based prevention efforts, and address the underlying socioeconomic challenges that often lead to substance use. By acknowledging the devastating impact of opium and other addictive substances on Native American communities, we can work towards healing and reconciliation, ensuring that this dark chapter in history does not define the future of Native Americans. Number 3. Government policies. False substance use. The history of Native Americans is marred by a long and tragic saga of government policies aimed at their destruction. One of the most insidious and devastating of these policies was the forced use of alcohol and other drugs. Alcohol was first introduced to Native Americans by European colonists. Initially, it was used as a form of currency and a way to gain favor with tribal leaders. However, as alcohol became more widely available, it began to have a devastating impact on Native communities. Alcoholism rates among Native Americans skyrocketed, leading to a host of social problems, including violence, crime, and poverty. Alcohol also weakened Native resistance to colonization and assimilation. In the 19th century, the United States government began to actively promote the use of alcohol among Native Americans. This was part of a larger strategy to assimilate Native Americans into white society and break down their tribal culture. The government used a variety of methods to promote alcohol use, including selling alcohol to Native Americans at low prices, establishing saloons and liquor stores near reservations, and encouraging Native Americans to adopt white drinking habits. These policies had a devastating impact on Native communities. Alcoholism became rampant, leading to widespread social and economic problems. Alcohol also weakened native resistance to government policies aimed at dispossessing them of their lands and resources. In addition to alcohol, the government also used other drugs to control and destroy Native Americans. These drugs included opium, morphine, and cocaine. The government distributed these drugs to Native Americans through a variety of means, including giving them to tribal leaders as gifts, selling them at low prices, and adding them to treaty payments. The use of these drugs had a devastating impact on Native communities. They led to widespread addiction, disease, and death. They also weakened Native resistance to government policies aimed at assimilating them into white society. The forced use of alcohol and other drugs was a key part of the U.S. government strategy to destroy Native American communities. These policies had a devastating impact on Native Americans, leading to widespread addiction, disease, death, and the loss of their lands and culture. Examples of forced substance use policies. The Indian Trade and Intercourse Act of 1817 prohibited the sale or distribution of alcohol to Native Americans, but this law was rarely enforced. The General Allotment Act of 1887, also known as Dawes Act, broke up tribal lands and allotted them to individual Native Americans. This made it easier for Native Americans to lose their land to alcohol or other debts. The Indian Reorganization Act of 1934 restored some tribal sovereignty and allowed Native Americans to govern their reservations. However, the government continued to control the sale and distribution of alcohol on reservation. The impact of forced substance use. The forced use of alcohol and other drugs had a devastating impact on Native American communities. 1. Addiction. Alcoholism and drug addiction rates skyrocketed among Native Americans. Disease. Substance abuse contributed to the spread of diseases such as tuberculosis and pneumonia. 2. Death. Alcohol and drug abuse were a major cause of death among Native Americans. 3. Loss of land and culture. Substance abuse weakened Native resistance to government policies aimed at dispossessing them of their lands and culture. The forced use of alcohol and other drugs was a key part of the U.S. government strategy to destroy Native American communities. These policies had a devastating impact on Native Americans, leading to widespread addiction, disease, death, and the loss of their lands and culture. The destructive impact of European colonization on Native American communities is a complex and multifaceted issue with far-reaching consequences that continue to reverberate today. One of the most insidious and often overlooked aspects of this colonization was the deliberate use of alcohol and other intoxicants to undermine and destroy Native American cultures and societies. From the early days of contact, Europeans recognized the potential of alcohol as a tool to manipulate and control Native Americans. Alcohol was used to weaken tribal resistance, facilitate land seizures, and promote cultural assimilation. Through a combination of coercion, trade, and outright deception, Europeans introduced alcohol to Native American communities, often in exchange for valuable goods, such as furs and land. The effects of alcohol on Native American communities were devastating. Alcoholism became widespread, leading to a range of social and health problems, including family breakdown, violence, and disease. Alcohol also played a significant role in the spread of infectious diseases, as weakened immune systems made Native Americans more susceptible to illnesses brought by European colonizers. The use of alcohol as a weapon against Native Americans is well documented in historical record. For instance, in 1775, British Lieutenant Colonel Henry Bouquet deliberately distributed contaminated rum to Native American warriors during the Battle of Bushy Run, contributing to their defeat. Similarly, in the 18th century, Spanish colonizers in California used alcohol to induce intoxication among Native Americans, making it easier to subdue and enslave them. The destructive impact of alcohol on Native American communities was exacerbated by the introduction of other intoxicants, such as opium and tobacco. Opium, introduced by Chinese traders in the 19th century, quickly spread among Native American communities, leading to widespread addiction and despair. Tobacco, introduced by European colonizers, also had a significant negative impact on Native American health, contributing to respiratory illnesses and other health problems. The use of drugs as a weapon against Native Americans was not simply an act of cruelty or indifference. It was a deliberate strategy to destroy their cultures and society. By undermining their physical and mental well-being, Europeans sought to make Native Americans more compliant and easier to control. The legacy of drug abuse among Native American communities continues to this day. High rates of alcoholism and substance abuse persist, contributing to a range of social and health problems. These problems are rooted in the historical trauma of colonization and the ongoing marginalization of Native American communities. Addressing the issue of drug abuse among Native American communities requires a multi-pronged approach that includes culturally sensitive treatment programs, economic development opportunities, and efforts to address the underlying trauma of colonization. It is also crucial to recognize the resilience of Native American cultures and their ongoing efforts to heal and revitalize their communities. In summary, the deliberate use of drugs to control, exploit, and eradicate Native American populations stands as a dark chapter in human history. From the introduction of alcohol by European colonizers to the forced administration of harmful substances in boarding schools, drugs have been employed as a weapon to undermine indigenous cultures, suppress resistance, and diminish the overall well-being of Native communities. The arrival of European colonizers in North America marked the beginning of a devastating era for Native Americans. Alcohol, a substance previously unknown to indigenous peoples, was introduced through trade and social interactions. Initially viewed with curiosity and novelty, alcohol quickly became a tool of exploitation and control. Colonizers used alcohol to manipulate Native Americans into signing unfair treaties, exchanging valuable land for seemingly insignificant trinkets, and fostering dependence on a substance that would wreak havoc on their communities. The effects of alcohol on Native American populations were profound and far-reaching. Alcoholism rates soared, leading to increased violence, family breakdown, and a decline in overall health. Social cohesion within tribes was eroded, and resistance movements were weakened as individuals succumbed to addiction. Alcoholism became a major factor in the decimation of Native American populations, contributing to widespread death and displacement. Beyond alcohol, other harmful substances were also employed to suppress and control Native Americans. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the forced assimilation of Native American children into boarding schools became a widespread practice. These institutions, often run by religious organizations, sought to eradicate indigenous cultures and languages, imposing Western values and beliefs upon Native children. In these boarding schools, the use of harmful substances became a tool of control and punishment. Children were forcibly administered medications, often without their knowledge or consent. These substances, often with unknown or poorly understood side effects, were used to subdue rebellious children, suppress their cultural identities, and render them more compliant with the assimilationist agenda. The lasting legacy of drug use as a weapon against Native Americans is evident in the high rates of addiction and substance abuse that continue to plague Indigenous communities today. Alcoholism remains a significant issue, and the legacy of forced assimilation and the use of harmful substances in boarding schools has contributed to intergenerational trauma and ongoing health disparities. Addressing this legacy requires a multifaceted approach that includes acknowledging the historical trauma inflicted upon Native Americans, providing culturally sensitive treatment and support services, and promoting education and awareness about the harmful effects of substance abuse. By understanding the role of drugs in the oppression of Native Americans, we can begin to heal the wounds of the past and work towards a future where Indigenous communities can thrive without the burden of addiction. Thank you for watching this video till its very end. Remember to like this video if you did not do it earlier. To stay up to date with more informative content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button and click the notifications bell to get notified anytime we upload exciting video contents like this one. Thank you.